Right, Dad.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Oh, very good, thank you.
Good, I'm glad to hear it.
Looking forward to this.
Yes, so today we're going to talk about working with family and friends.
Oh, I think that's why I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. So we've mentioned in other episodes that myself and Dad work together. We have worked together in the past. Dad kindly let me be a speaker at one of his events.
Amazing you were.
Thank you. Pickaroons have created content for Dad. And in the last few months, Dad has become my business/accountability coach.
That's only official, by the way. I mean, what I mean is it's been official in the last few months, but I have been helping you for a while.
You've helped. Oh yeah, you've always helped me. Yeah, through chats with Dad. Yeah, but official role, like it's proper work. It's proper work, and we have a few other things where we're speaking with some other partners. My mum is now working for me on admin. She's been working with Dad, doing the admin for what, 20, 30 years?
Yes. I'll find out where the money is one day.
So we're well experienced in working with family. And I know, Dad, that you've got many other stories, and not just from now, but through BNI, through the times when you had Philipsburg Interiors, the carpet shop, where you've employed brothers, cousins, dads. When I say dads, your dad, all sorts of people have been involved. So I think really this episode is to share some of the ups and downs, because I've heard some horror stories from you, from other people, of families, what happens when you try and work with family and friends. And obviously there's the bonus side to it. There's the amazing feeling of celebrating those wins. But likewise, you've got, well, how do you deal with all the problems of business when then you've got to go sit at the dinner table together afterwards or go to a family event? So I think after that bit of context setting, my question is, what is your number one tip for hiring a member of your family?
This could be one of the shortest podcasts we've ever done.
Why?
Don't do it.
Yeah.
No, that's not actually true. The reality, I think, of this one is how lovely, when you think about it, how lovely if you can work with people you know. You know, in business, in life maybe, there's transactional and there's relational. You know, you could build a lot of friends and go bankrupt because you're a real relational type person. You know, you're very friendly, everyone loves you, you love everyone else, but you've forgotten to earn money. And as we've done in our previous podcast, you have to earn money.
Yeah.
Likewise, you could be very transactional, and I'm talking about completely opposites here, but really transactional, not relational at all. And you may be, and I'm sure a lot of people are, therefore hugely successful financially, but do you want to be them? Do you aspire to be that type of character? And I must stress, saying that everyone that has aspired to be financially excellent is not nice. But, you know, how many of us know some very, very, very wealthy people and you think, I don't want to be you. I don't even like you, that type of thing. So if you can balance correctly relational and have a nice social aspect to your life, and transactional where you're having the finance you need, then, you know, what a lovely balance. So when we talk about relational, there's the old saying, you can choose your friends, you can't choose your family. I mean, we didn't have a choice to have you. That's just it, you know?
Yeah.
But, you know, you can choose your friends, you can't choose your family. I would advise anybody to go into it with your eyes wide open. If they are the right person, then they are the right person. And then how lovely is it that it's a member of your family or a good friend? But don't recruit somebody because, for example, I'm the eldest son. I'm the eldest son, so therefore I'm the oldest of our siblings. So I've certainly recruited between brothers and sisters, if you like, because I kind of wanted to look after them. I thought I was doing a good deed, and a mistake that you listeners should not make, and for me, it wasn't a mistake at the time because it was one of my sayings is it was a right decision that turned out wrong.
Yeah.
Is if you know that this other person, irrelevant of being a family member or friend, is a so-and-so, their character is just not conducive to the way you work, the way you are, the way you have your values. Don't make the mistake that on the relational side, you feel that you will have a good enough relationship to be able to talk to them about improving them. You've got to go into it with your eyes wide open. But I think in my learnings, and if I had my time again, there would be a lot more honest and open communication before we have the problem. You know, if you can imagine, like any relationship, I suppose, any marriage, they say that 2 in 3 marriages fail. And I'm always thinking, wow, you mean 1 in 3 succeed? Because you think that 2 people that meet, as you know, my lovely wife and I, your mother, Jacqueline, or Jackie to me, we knew each other when we were 14 years old. That's a long, long time. 44 years ago. So you can now work out how old she is, okay? 44 years. Neither of us can be the same at 60 than we were at 14. Different aspirations, different values of life, who we meet along our journey. All of us, who we meet along our journey can influence us, mold us along the way. Now, I'm not here as a marriage guidance counselor because I'm not. But, you know, you don't want to wake up one day and find out that you're going in a different direction because you have different aspirations. So in any good relationship, and this is not relationship guidance, in any good relationship, you have to, A, be honest and kind of set the scene at the beginning. But like everything, continue to say, are we still on the same journey?
Yeah.
Are we still going in the same direction? You know, I'm often saying to Mum, so what does your bucket list look like now? You know, what are things that you want to tick off, please God, over the next X amount of years? Because they could be completely different to my interests. And it's like, oh, okay, how am I going to do that? But it's good to know. So I think the thing I would advise anybody when you're considering working with friends or families is absolutely don't disregard it. Because the one thing you have got or should have is loyalty, trust, relationship development. So if you've got all that in a positive way, and I'm not saying what I'm about to say for our audience members here because you're my wonderful son, but I think Mum and I feel completely lucky and privileged that with you and Tash, you know, we could spend time together, the 4 of us, and we do, and it's just a complete and utter pleasure, real pleasure. And we're mates as well as family, and that's something special. So if for example, you know, could we work together? Well, you and I do work together. We don't have an issue because we don't have an issue in our personal life.
I'm going to stop you though, because you say we don't have an issue. We do clash when we work. We don't, hear me out. We don't have an issue because something in our personal life you always said was we don't go to bed angry.
Yes.
So especially remember when in the second lockdown when I was, actually I live with you guys in both lockdowns.
Yes.
The second lockdown when I was living with you guys and we were working on stuff and it was just relentless. Because do you remember we said about there's the 2 types of, what was it, when you're asking for help and feedback. So some days I would just want to rant to you about a client, a work, or something. And you were saying in kind of, you weren't officially my coach then, but you were still.
You wanted me to just listen.
Or would
I
you
was
just be
picking
my
up on
dad
things,
and
saying,
just
"But hang
listen
on a
and go
minute,"
like,
and you go,
and
just
you
listen.
And you were going, whereas Mum was sitting there going, oh yeah, oh that's annoying, oh yeah. You were going, well, have you tried doing this? I was like, Dad, it's 10 o'clock at night, like, let me just, and poor Mum, just every dinner table would go into, and you were doing the same, because you were saying about stuff going on with BNI, when you were kind of going through all the changes of selling that. And I was going, well, how about this and how about that? I was working for BNI at the time.
Yeah.
And there was all these dynamics that it never felt like we were having a break. And there was plenty of times when we were clashing. But what's that saying when it's like hate the sin, love the sinner or something? No.
Don't know.
Love the sin. Yeah. Hate the sin, love the sinner. So I'm not saying there was any sins going on, but it's that it was never a you and me were clashing. It was business thought and business thought were clashing. So I feel like, because what you said then is right, we do all get on, but that doesn't change when we work together. A lot of times there's arguing, there's bickering, there's you've got it wrong, there's I disagree. But then at the end of it, it's right, hug, walk off. There's no thoughts, goes on to the next thing.
Question, great conversation is, how long do we argue for?
Oh, like a minute. But then we move on to we move so fast though. We move on to the next thing, and 2 minutes later we're arguing about something else.
This is personalities, right? It's a minute. Okay? It's not an argument.
Yeah, then 5 minutes later we'll be arguing about something else or disagreeing.
And how long
does
that last?
Another minute.
And is that over with as well?
Yeah.
And then is there a big hug at the end?
Always.
So is that a clash, or is that just a way we work it out between each other?
That's the way
two
we
strong
work,
personalities, correct?
Yes, and that's the way we work.
Right. So for me, it would be a problem if, let's say, for example, just through experience, through knowledge, there was something practical you were going to do, and it was absolutely the wrong thing to do. Absolutely the wrong thing to do. Okay. And you completely disregarded, argued with it, and I was kind of, I don't get angry, as you know, but I'm like, no, don't do it. And you decide to do it. Okay. I'm just making this up because it hasn't happened. Be honest. It hasn't happened. Okay. You decide to do it. And yeah, I was correct. It turned out wrong. Okay. I'd be the type that would sit with you and say, right, let's discuss this. Okay. Now, if you tell me, say, well, I don't care, and I don't, that would be a clash of personality. Yeah. Would you accept that? Yeah. That would be, you're uncoachable. Would you accept that?
Yeah.
But that's not the case. Let me ask you a question. Are you coachable?
Yes.
Okay. Are you strong enough that you'll challenge something if you don't agree?
Yeah.
Right. But do we always come to an agreement that I was correct? No.
Yeah.
Do we always come to an agreement that works out?
Yeah.
That's called a strong relationship. So we have a very, I mean, I'm not leading you here. Yeah. Would you say, because I'm sounding passionate.
We do.
Do we have a strong relationship?
Very much so. But that's and it might be like a healthy thing. We spoke before about doubt. When I spoke to other people that said, oh, and I work with my dad and now I don't speak to him, I've thought, oh my God, is something going to happen one day? And I think that fear, I know, but I think that fear is what keeps it from happening. But there is, as soon as it was like, right, if dad's going to be my coach and I'm going to fully get him into the business, there's always that fear of, is it going to push too far? Is there going to be something?
Will you agree with me if I'm completely wrong? Would you agree with me if I'm completely wrong?
I agree with you if you're, no.
Correct.
But that's the point. Is there going to be one day when you're so completely wrong?
But I have the experience. My love for you is so strong that would never get in the way.
I know. And likewise, but that's still, and I think it's a good thing.
And you are demonstrating argumentative.
Yeah, exactly, right now. But that's the thing, that I think that's a good thing, that I've got that doubt, because that's what keeps it. I think if you don't have that doubt, that's when you could get a nasty hiccup. And that's the nature of business. You said to me, working with friends, if you don't get things in place. So we've got in place, let's say, that if ever it got too heated, it's like, right, let's agree to disagree, but we're fine, because that's something we've done.
And we will come back to the table.
And we will be
at
fine.
The right time.
We will be fine. That's always been us, because we put that in place. But bigger than us, I've always thought, but is there ever going to be a time? And I think that worry of that is why we've got that in place. It's why we don't do that. But I wonder, as I start to work with more friends and bring more friends into the Pickeroons crew, and got a couple of friends I'm looking at business partnerships with, that's just our personality. And I've known you all my life.
And I've known you all your life.
So that's very different. But taking it away from us and the fact that we clash, but in a good way, and we have figured it out. So we're good. My worry sometimes is with some of my friends becoming clients or working with, how do I get to that point that you and me were already at before we started working together?
But you now know a point to get to.
Yes.
From experience, you now know a point to get to before you then start working with them.
Yeah.
Okay. So that point would be, look, let's say I'll give you two examples. I've been in my latter life, I've been in 3 business partnerships throughout my life. 2 of them didn't work. One of them was horrendous. It was completely the wrong partner. One of the nicest con men you'll ever meet when I was younger. And ultimately, without going into detail, he was a con man. And I was fooled by that. And literally, he financially hurt us in a very bad way. We did. So that was, but I didn't see it coming. Been working for this guy for years, became the managing director, and the guy was as good as family in my mind. But he was a bad apple, a rotten apple. And ultimately, here's the moral of the story. I didn't see it and I couldn't control it. Okay. And I thought we were both going in the same direction. In reality, like any relationship, we were in the moment. We didn't have a direction. When I look back at that business partnership, he was 10 years older than me. I'd never, ever asked him, does he have an exit strategy? And this is really directly answering your question.
Yeah.
When I say to anyone, whether it's friends or family, ask the right questions at the beginning. Now, that could change during the journey, but I didn't ask because I didn't know the correct questions at the beginning. What are your aspirations for our partnership? How long do you want to be working for? Where do you see the company, the business, yourself? Where do you see you in 10 years' time? Those are questions that in all 3 partnerships, maybe not the last one, and I'll talk about that shortly. In certainly the first 2 business relationships, and the second business relationship, by the way, just broke up amicably because we were actually different characters. We were actually different styles of behavior. He was a great guy, a nice guy, but we just had different standards. For me, if we have a meeting at 3:00, I'm there at 3:15.
Yeah.
He arrives at 5 past and thinks it's okay. Our standards were different, and that actually have started to affect, if you like, the way we had our meetings, etc. But nice guy. It just literally, it was best that we parted company. And that was amicable. We're not friends now, but we can see each other in that environment. It's not a problem at all. I wouldn't say a bad word about him. We just had different ways of working. The third partnership only ended a year ago because I decided that I wanted to sell my shares in the business to make a difference, coaching people, mentoring people, etc. And I almost wanted to start moving towards retirement, etc. And for those that don't know, my definition of retirement is working with who I want, when I want, how I want, at the price I deserve. So I only now do the things I love and make a lot of difference to people that want my help. So that third partnership, there were a lot more questions asked. And this guy was a friend, been working in my team for a long time. You can't go into a marriage thinking you're going to be divorced. You can't go into a marriage thinking this isn't correct. It might work out. If that's the case, then there's a good chance it's not the right thing at the beginning. And I think that's, looking back, something that I would do differently. I recruited a member of my family, very close. This member of my family was a hothead. This member of my family was never wrong. This member of my family I always used to take under my wing, although they didn't really know it or appreciate it at the time. I don't even think they do now. Yeah. And ultimately, I was worried for the direction this member of my family was going in. And I took this member of my family into my company. I'm not sure that I had the leadership and communication skills that I do now, but he would argue back in front of me, ultimately the boss.
In front of you or in front of people?
In front of me, argue back with me, I beg your pardon, in front of other people, that left me in a very uncomfortable situation that I've either got to flex my muscles here and put him in his place because otherwise others will do it, but yet this is a very close member of my family. And there I would go as far as saying screaming, shouting.
You would?
Both, him and I, angry. I take it home. And it was, I recruited this member of my family because I thought I could mold them. I thought I could change, but I never said, are you coachable? When you interview anybody, put scenarios out there. Most small businesses, when they interview for somebody, they look for somebody nice.
Yeah.
They look for somebody that could fit the company image. They very rarely challenge them on what's the best thing you've ever achieved. What would you do in this adverse situation? Okay. If we ever had words and you disagreed, how would you react to that? Okay. So those questions would be now what I would encourage people. So for me, it's not about, yes, there comes into it about, well, this is friend or family, and I'll give a couple of stories on that. But I think it's very much about the questions at the beginning. Why do you want to work with me? How do you want to work? I mean, I have a friend, personal friend. I could never partner with him ever in a million years because I think he's clever, but he's definitely lazy.
Yeah.
And that wouldn't resonate with the way I work. Great guy, but definitely.
And the same even for just like living with people. And I know it's maybe a bit different, but for me, I've had it where I've got friends, I'm like, they're my best friend. I could never, ever live with them.
But yet we get into bed with them, per se, in business.
But again, that's what I mean by the same thing of which personalities, which types, and, my style of I'm much always going to put my own stress levels over the work and the money. But there's so much I'm not even going to bother trying to pitch in with them because that'll end up, I'm certain that will ruin the friendship. So even if I think it, that means it will. So there's no point.
Look,
the friendship's more important to me.
You're better off saying no, okay, that we won't work together and risk losing somebody that could potentially work out than taking them on, risking the friendship if that's a value
because like the
to
friends
you.
that I do work with, it's like I'm 99% sure it would be fine. But I think from your experiences, there's part of me and why I wanted to speak about this that always goes, and you've always said to me, like, get the contracts in place, get this stuff. And I remember going, but it seems a bit harsh. It's like one of my friends, but you said, protect yourself.
One thing you cannot control in life is the other person's reaction.
Yeah.
And I don't mean the other person being your friend in this. In anything in life, I can control what I do. I can control what I say. I can't control the other person. So let's say you wanted to go into partnership with somebody, but you only want to work 4 days a week. Fine. But you explain it. You agree. And one mistake people make because it's a friend, they don't act as if it was a business conversation. So therefore they have that agreement. You're working 4 days a week. And by the way, on one of the days, I pick the kids up from school at 4:00. So that particular day I'm around,
Yeah.
But then when it actually happens, and then the other person starts thinking, hang on a minute, because they've forgotten. So anything that's, if you like, an agreement, you simply put it in as an email saying, and I would put this up front. Look, Jamie, to avoid any problems, to avoid any concerns later down the line, I'd like to summarize this conversation, if that's okay, in writing.
Yeah.
Okay. I'd like to send it to you for approval, just in case I've missed anything off or you want to add anything on, so that we can both kind of revert back to this if ever we need to do. Let's keep it official. So that's something important. Yeah. One of my best friends was working with me, and I'll call him Barry, if I may, because his name's Barry. And we would have our monthly support call where I would be basically coaching and improving him. And he would start it off almost with a kind of, hi, how are you? How's the day been? And I kind of said, no, let's not do that. Okay. This is a 1 hour support call and coaching call. Let's do the hour. Let's do straight in. I'm happy to even put the phone down at the end and then phone you back a minute later and say, how are you? Because we've got to actually put our mind into the right place to understand the relationship. So I remember, and there's different aspects to working with friends or family. You could be talking about as part of your business. You could be talking about as a client. I remember years and years ago, you were still young, you're old now. And we were going to one of the kids' parties or something like that, obviously taking you and Natasha. And as we were walking in, it was kind of a friend, but close enough to call a friend. We'd never been out with him and his wife, but when we'd gone out, kind of 8 of us or whatever, him and his wife were always one of the 8 type of thing. And I said, how are you? He said, stressed at the moment, having a lot of work done in our house. And I remember, for those that don't know, I was in carpet and flooring for 32 years. I said, oh, right. I said, I look forward to doing the carpet and flooring for you. Not just a quote. Look.
Yeah.
And he looked very sheepish. And I looked at him and said, what? He said, oh, we've already sorted that. And I looked at him, and there's an interesting point here because there's two schools of thought. I looked at him and said, you've gone to somebody else. Now, he knows he was wrong because I used to do a lot of work for family and friends. If anything, they get the ultimate service. Everyone should. But you do say to your fitters, this is a friend, don't make this, whatever. So I remember saying to him, you go to somebody else. And he sheepishly, credit him for a quickish answer, but he actually said, oh, well, I don't like dealing with family and friends in case it goes wrong. So I said, oh, right. I said, well, if I don't get business from family and friends, who do I get it from? Because that was the other school of thought. And he went, oh, yeah, good point. I said, and do you not think that if I'm looking after you, if anything were to go wrong, you don't think I would absolutely put that right? But the point here is not what I knew I would do for him. It was his insecurity, his failing. Of course. So ultimately, I would say that there's a story about him.
But I understand that's what I do understand that. I mean, do you remember when, obviously through this friend of mine, the Hollywood Animation Studio got in touch to work with me in Picaroons? And that was this is a big project. This is a big step up. What if I didn't deliver? Which again, that healthy doubt is what helped me help drive it.
I agree.
But it was still a worry of what, and look, it's gone amazing. I've loved working with him. It's been brilliant. But it was what I hadn't worked with him before, just because it was a friend that I knew I got on with as a best friend since I was a kid. So it was like there was no qualms on that, but I'd never worked with him on anything before. So it was that doubt of how devastating it would have been if it hadn't have been. And I know that in some situations, that's where some people would go, I would rather not deal with it than do it and have the potential it could. And look, now I'm thankful that I went for it and it didn't cause any issues. But I do understand the thought of avoid it, and then there's avoid it, and it definitely won't go wrong.
But all of our friends used us for their flooring.
Yeah, I understand that.
So I think he came up with that as an excuse, whilst I can understand. Yeah. But again, if you're not getting, could you imagine, I know you're my son, but could you imagine if I needed to increase my sales, I needed to increase my leads, by using effective communication, effective content, do you think I would go to somebody else because I'm just not going to fall out with my son? It doesn't
I get it.
Doesn't even enter my mind. Whilst we've got to accept for some people, it might, but you're not after serving the whole world. Using the Hollywood Animation Studio as an example, you said you'd be worried if you could live up to their expectation. I thought that was amazing. So I would advise anybody, before you agree to do the work, you talk about what's their expectation.
Isn't it one of your burgisms? Like, if you want people to live up to your...
if you want people to live up to your expectation, you have to lower your expectation. I don't know if that applies on this one, but it's literally...
Yeah, so I think just you said expectation, I thought of that one because that is a very good one.
Well, disappointment is related to expectation, but I think your fear of living up to expectation, I think the moral of the story is all of that stuff gets dealt with prior to let's shake hands. If you're concerned about living up to their expectation, what should you do?
Find out what their expectation is.
Right. Now, if their expectation is something you think, well, I can do that, and hopefully it's what they want, then again, you'd be saying to them, well, could I give you an example? And is that the type of thing you mean? So I would say to anybody, take a little bit longer, hire slow, fire fast.
Yeah.
So
take a book.
I don't know.
I think it's a book.
And if it is, I should get some money.
I think it is a book. Yeah.
Okay.
Hire slow, fire fast.
Okay, maybe. I've just heard the statement.
Yeah.
So ultimately, I would say do a lot more talking at the beginning, particularly if it's friends or family, because, we have got to talk about, look, this is a fear I have. So I want to do this. I want to work this way. This is where I want to go. What are you thinking of doing? A lot more of that. How do you, if one is the boss, particularly, I mean, a partnership, interesting. Okay. This is my role. That's my role. Talk about if we have something to say to each other, okay, what's the best way you receive that? Because I never want our friendship put in question. That does not guarantee that your friendship won't be in question. But let's also just touch on something else. If you're working with your friends, family, working for them, they're working for you. I would take that out of the equation of the relationship and just say, look, here's what they want and what we want going to work. Is it the right decision? If they weren't a member of your family or friends, are they the right person? Because that might be useful.
Yeah.
If you went, well, they are the right person, then you address the friendship, you address the communication, you manage the expectations. And it's only right that when you're working for this animation company, and you still are, that when you decided to work with them, you're going to have that, okay, let's now hope I can do it. Even if you knew you could, but that's what keeps you on your toes as you. I've worked, my father worked for me. Okay. But I didn't have the experience I did now. I would never, I love him, but I would never recruit him again. Completely uncoachable.
Yeah.
The other member of my family I spoke about, I would never recruit this person again. Completely uncoachable. My last business partnership, as I said, with Brian, who's an amazing guy, it changed just because I made a decision that I'm getting a bit older.
Yeah.
And I want to live the rest of my career doing what I do now, which is coaching, mentoring, and speaking at events. And Brian totally understood that I've made a decision because things changed that I want to go a bit earlier. We're still great mates, but the way we worked together was excellent. And when we had the odd disagreement on an opinion or what we thought we should do, like you and I discussed earlier in this particular podcast, a great relationship, you work it out. Sometimes you compromise in any relationship. So I'd say the whole thing boils down to the communication, and I think a lot more up front. And making sure, you said something also very interesting. They say, so husband and wives, first of all, mum and I do things completely different. Okay. I am out there earning the money and mum's there hiding it. Okay. So we do something completely different. I trust, and I say, obviously, sometimes I'm sure in certain relationships they don't, but then don't work together.
Yeah.
I trust in mum totally and utterly. And at the end of the day, she trusts in me totally and utterly. So it works. What we have to be careful, they call it pillow talk, which is where we're going to bed and say, oh, did that invoice arrive or whatever? Yeah. And you've got to make sure you have rules.
Same me with my phones. I've got my personal phone and my business phone. And I've had to have, it's been tough, but there's been quite a while where I had to say to my friends, view me like two separate people. So someone would send me something, and I remember it was tough because there was someone, oh, can you just have a look at this for me on my personal phone? I said, no. And they said, oh, mate, please, just as a quick thing. I said, I don't think you realize that when it's my day off or I'm not working, I'm switched off for how much I've got on. When I'm switched off mentally, that's very important. So if you ask me to look at something and I now think maybe it's not good or maybe it's given me another idea, you've switched my brain away from relax mode into work mode where I'm analyzing, I'm thinking, I'm connecting dots. Well, actually, if you do that, that might link to this. So where you think all you're asking me to do is say, looks good or doesn't, I'm actually now reviewing little details and I'm switching. And now I could maybe use that for another part of the business.
It's not helping you in other parts.
So I really had to be strict and say, and to the point where someone was like, I really need to speak to you. And I just wrote, send it to the work phone and when I'm back on.
So this is a great way to end this particular podcast, okay? Do you remember me saying to you, you cannot be experienced until you have experiences?
Yeah.
Remember that? So you gave a brilliant example there of something that happened that you respectfully and correct. Well, I say respectfully and correctly. Respectfully, because it was a mate, kind of said, mate, no. But if that would have been addressed before it happened.
Had been.
So in that case.
And it happened multiple times. It was like.
And
stop.
Written?
I can't remember if it was written.
Okay, there goes back to my point. So if it were written, so that changes it officially at the beginning. Just say, look, I'm just going to drop this back in. If they were going to phone you on an off day, they'd have phoned you anyway. But you could have then had a bit more fun with it and said, hi, da, da, da. I said, yeah, I really appreciate that. And you because you genuinely have such a great personality when you're doing your humor and your banter, you say, refer to email.
Yeah.
Right. 13th of January. Refer to email, 13th of January. Okay. terms of working together. Okay. And you say, and you change the conversation to, so send it, I'll deal with it tomorrow if that's okay. Now, if they've got an issue with that, it touches on something I said earlier in the podcast. You can't control that, them. If that turned into a little bit more of an awkward situation afterwards, they really weren't happy with you, then again, you would pick up the phone and say, hi, mate, we've got a good relationship. We need to talk about this because it shouldn't affect.
So tough conversations, but like you said, it's the good sides of working with friends and family. Make those.
You make a decision. You make a decision. There are members of my family and members of my friends group that I certainly, if you like, communicate and handle differently, having worked with some of them. Has it affected our friendship? Possibly in their mind, no. In my mind, a little bit. But I'm not going to lose the friendship because that's just the way they are.
Yeah. So in summary, with all of that, I know we covered a few different things and we had a nice chat there as always. What would you say to our listeners as a end note of, if you're thinking of, or it's most likely, it seems like for most people, somewhere in their life, they're going to work with, hire, recommend friends or family for work, how would you summarize that conversation for them as takeaways?
So I think if I was thinking of purchasing something from a member of the family, I wouldn't do it just because they're family. Are they good enough to do the job I want? If they're not, it's awkward because you go somewhere else and you think, well, what if they find out? So do you phone them and say, hi, look, I need your services, but I'm not coming to you. I'd rather tell you up front and let's talk about it. You wouldn't. So you have to deal with that aspect. If you're thinking of purchasing somebody and you're going somebody else because you're not confident in who you're purchasing from. But I would say if you're purchasing and you have no problem with the services or products of the member of family you're purchasing from, then wouldn't you rather help them and give them the money as you would want back to you than give it to a stranger? So that becomes a no-brainer for me, providing I'm happy they're good at their job. As you know, recently we had work done at home by a very close member of the family. And all I would say is we make choices. We're really not happy, but this person's a lovely person. They haven't done a good job and everything's choice. So we made the decision. We are going to recruit somebody else to come in and, if you like, put it right. Our love for that member of family is still the same because this person's a great person, just didn't do a good job.
Are you going to say to them?
No, of course not. Of course not. But of course not. That's our choice because in this case, there is a risk element that the relationship would be challenged with further family as well.
Needed to.
And it's cost us some money, if you like, and time and aggravation, all of which we're not pleased about. But this person didn't do a bad job with bad intent.
Yeah.
So ultimately, we have a choice. Break up the relationship or everything stays the same at family functions ahead and hey-ho. And it goes back to choice. If it's working together and there's finances involved, I think everything has to be specifically agreed up front, including when we work, how we work, how we deal with this, what are the future plans. Just do a lot more agreement up front. Things can change, but as with any relationship, husband, wife, boyfriend, whatever, as with any relationship, continually review how are things going? Are you still happy? Is your exit strategy still your exit strategy? Are there ways our relationship can be improved? Do you have any challenges with our relationship? You know, when people learn how to develop relationships, a lot more can be achieved. So whether family, friends, strangers, relationship communication.